In Minecraft 1.14, new functional blocks were added into the game. These blocks were huge additions, being slowly rolled out as snapshots were released. As blocks came out one by one, we were able to give our thoughts on them individually, and now that they're all out together with 1.14, we've more or less stepped back and reevaluated our previous standings. In the case of a lot of these blocks, some people have deemed them as game changers, but if Minecraft 1.9 shows us anything, changing the game isn't always good. In this video, we're going to talk about some of these new blocks. Not all of them, but some. We're going to give our praises, but also air out some of our grievances. While we think that almost all of the changes to these blocks are positive ones, we definitely have a few issues with the way that they're handled, and we'll get into that later. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So, if you made a dirt house to survive the night and accidentally stayed inside during all of the snapshots and the eventual Minecraft 1.14 release, then you might be pretty confused. The super short summary is this: Mojang added what we've deemed new function blocks. These blocks, to put it simply, have either been created to work in conjunction with previously available methods for crafting various things, or to replace a different system entirely. A good example of this is the loom, which now decorates banners while removing the ability to do so from the crafting table. Another example is the stone cutter, which works independently but also retains the classic crafting recipes for certain types of blocks. Where there's good, there's also the bad, the yin and the yang. These items definitely don't come without their controversy. 1.14's inclusion of these items brought interesting opinions, but before we get into the bad, let's talk about the good. So what's good? Well, a lot. Minecraft has added a ton of new blocks, and among some of them come some pretty cool features. While things like the new furnaces don't change much aside from the cooking and smelting speeds of those blocks, there is some benefit. Being able to cook twice as fast is a huge plus. Topping it off with the campfire, which only uses one coal, doesn't need to be replenished with fuel ever, works as a lesser beacon if you're not wanting the effects of a beacon, and doubling as a marker works really nice. While they don't change much, they are huge pluses and are great options. The previously mentioned loom and stone cutter is where all that changes though. Those are the game changers, and in a fairly positive way. First off, the loom. While we already explained it, I want to phrase it. Being able to have a visual way to decorate banners without having to remember how to craft 20-something recipes for the patterns is pretty nice. Before, it was just a monstrosity. You had to pull up a recipe sheet and pray that you had it figured out. Now, you put in a banner, grab a die, get to work. This is crazy, and now I couldn't imagine it any other way. If I'm talking about the loom though, I have to talk about the stone cutter. Just like the loom, working with stone went from a headache to, in some cases, just downright fun. Jumping in and not having to remember the countless recipes makes things way easier. Seriously, do you know how many blocks work with the stone cutter? 29. Yeah, 29 blocks work with the stone cutter. In some cases, for some of those blocks, there's upwards of 7 recipes you had to remember for each individual block. Now, there's one. Make a stone cutter and throw a block into it. You can make stairs, chiseled blocks, walls, and more. To put it simply, the stone cutter cuts the competition in half, or even more so. And now, the bad, but you'll probably be confused. The cartography table and grindstone were also added to Minecraft. But AntVenom, I can already hear you saying. These are cool additions. I agree with you, 100%. These blocks are amazing. So why did I put them in the bad category? Well, only to prove a point. The cartography table does great things. It can clone, zoom out, and lock maps, all with a few simple clicks and remembering a few various things. To clone, you need a second map. To enlarge, you need a single piece of paper. To lock, you need a glass pane. All of these are great things. The grindstone also does great things. The grindstone simply replaces the ability to combine items within your inventory and forces you to use its own input slots. You'll be able to combine items and repair them, while also removing enchantments. Being an alternative to the anvil and main inventory, it does do its job pretty well. I mean, it even gives you some experience back as a bonus. So why is this bad? I can hear you asking. What do not only the grindstone and cartography table have in common, but also the blast furnace, smoker, loom, and stonecutter? It's simple: accessibility, or a lack thereof. So, lack of accessibility. What do I mean by that? Well, for a moment, I want you to imagine that you are a player either returning to Minecraft after years of not playing it, or you're actually a brand new player to Minecraft. Prior to this update, the fundamental core mechanics of crafting had never really been severely altered before. Sure, we got additions like the brewing stand, but never before that I can recall has functionality that once existed within the crafting table have been removed from it entirely. Prior to this update, all you really had to know was make a crafting bench and craft some items, with the only real exception being having to separately learn about the brewing stand. But now, you have to separately learn about not only the brewing stand, but the loom, the cartography table, and the stonecutter. If you don't know that these items exist, you might get completely lost, and that is where the problem lies: accessibility. If you go into a village, you might have a chance of finding one of these new blocks. If you find one though, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll find them all and learn about them all. And if the first ones that you find are the smithing table and the fletching table, then I feel bad for you, because you might get super confused, right click on them, and when nothing happened, you might even ignore the rest of them. For maps, this kinda stinks. You can still make maps in your inventory, expand them and duplicate them, but without the cartography table, you're wasting a lot of resources. If you don't know that the cartography table exists, you just wasted a ton of paper. So, how do we fix this? Well, simply actually. When you load up a Minecraft world and you break a log, it shows you what you can do with that log. The crafting recipe book is there as well. When you open up the crafting recipe book, there should immediately be a section dedicated to these new crafting blocks, whether it's unlocked after you get your first piece of wood or whatever. Those blocks need to be front and center so that you know that they exist from the get-go. They need to be defined, literally and figuratively. Hovering over their icon should show you their name and a very small description of what the block does. Some examples could be: for the stonecutter, it cuts stone; the loom, it makes banners, and so on and so forth. From there, you would know that the items exist, and then you could research how to make them and what they do for yourself. It was always a question of if these new blocks would overcomplicate the crafting system. I think for two reasons it isn't a problem. Again, think about if we had to make potions in the crafting bench. It would be awful. Now we're here. I can't imagine living without the loom for making banners or the brewing stand for making potions. The only problem I have is that it's not intuitive to know that these new blocks exist or are required in the first place. If we want to avoid overcomplicating the crafting system, then we really need to make a tab within the recipe book for function or crafting blocks. And I think that this would apply for even things like the furnace as well. That way, when a new player comes along, or an old player just getting into the game joins again, they can open up the good old familiar crafting bench and get all of the critical information they need to re-embark on their adventure of discovery. Want to really drill it into their heads? Attach an always active advancement to every single one of those blocks in its own category with an even longer description of what the item does. And while I'm at it, the Minecraft Bedrock Edition's How to Play section within the menus really really needs to be changed. While I would hate for this to be the official resource of figuring out how these blocks work in the Bedrock edition of the game, the Loom one is an example of something that needs more context. It tells you what it does, but to the unknowledgeable player, it's just a bunch of words that they don't understand. Bedrock supports images in this case, so throw some images in there. Also, next to the words of items, maybe throw up some icons for easier use. Just some ideas. While there aren't any perfect solutions, I definitely think that Mojang could figure it out. I have faith. If you want to give them your opinions on this, then definitely head to the feedback website. But what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do these blocks work well in your opinion? Or do you think that their accessibility needs to be more considered? Let me know in the comment section down below. But other than that, that just about does it for me for now. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like on it, because it would really help out myself and Michaelmcchill, who co-wrote and edited this video, the channel and the video quite a lot. But anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed. My name is AntVenom and I bid you all farewell. Thanks so much for watching.